I would like to call the meeting to order for the City of Kennedale City Council on September 21st, 2021 at 5:32 p.m. Members of the public may join in person or access a live feed. The virtual option does not allow for public comment. First item is the work session. Presentation by Tarrant County Clerk Mary Louise Nicholson of the Tarrant County 2020 Coronavirus Pandemic Historical Book to the Kennedale Public Library. Good evening.
Had a bit of traffic out there. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for inviting us out and giving us an opportunity to talk about this book that we put together in Tarrant County. We can all agree that 2020 it changed everything, our businesses, our government life, and how we did things in the public and private. Auditor. So we had a professional writer. We used a local printer, and we captured a 176-page book. Governor Abbott is in the book. Governor Abbott is in the introductory of this book. Judge Whitley's in the prologue. We have elected officials. We have department heads, their staff. As keeper of the record, as county clerk in Tarrant County, to me, archiving and creating records was something we needed to do, and this book was something we did. Our committee saw value in this book of putting the 1918 pandemic and how 100 years ago, it seems like history repeated itself. For example, they had their masks were called chin sales, and you had a large portion of the United States that refused to wear chin sales. So it just kind of seems like history was repeating itself. This book also has a memoriam page to show the future generations how many people we lost in the pandemic in the 41 cities. At the time of printing in 2020, in April of 2021, there were 3,000 members, neighbors and friends and coworkers that had passed before we got the vaccine. To honor their lives, we were determined to put this in the hands of people that would cherish this book. And we created a certain amount of books that are going to go to the 41 cities, the libraries, the universities, and the high schools. And then the Commissioner's Court also printed a limited number of this book that they wanted to distribute to citizens and employees of Tarrant County. So the books that the Commissioner Courts have, it's a limited number. They're selling them for $20 for anybody that wants to purchase that to kind of memorialize what happened. One of the most rewarding things for me and the team on this project is that we submitted it to different Congress libraries to see if they wanted it, and the Library of Congress accepted 2 copies. Being the 3rd largest county in Texas, they saw tremendous value of putting that in their archives to have that. So with that, I just want to say thank you for giving us an opportunity to come in here. We do want to offer the book to your library as a reference material, and so we're going to work with your librarian to sign it, just so people can see it and understand what we all went through and what y'all went through as leaders. And hopefully we'll get past this pandemic, but I appreciate your time, and God bless all of y'all. Thank you. Appreciate it. Available if anybody's interested. Let us know and we'll run some out to y'all. The sword is selling it for $20. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good
That book will be passed on to the library for citizens. And the next item is to discuss and consider offering staff direction regarding the Economic Development Corporation Board priorities, funding, and staffing.
Mayor and council, this was put on the agenda at the request of council, specifically Jan Joplin and Austin Degenhart. I know there's been some discussion of the idea of hiring a consultant, and then there's been some discussion about how those EDC funds can be more appropriately used. So I'm going to let council lead this discussion, and staff is here to answer questions.
Thank you for having this on the agenda. I just want everyone to understand why the Economic Development Corporation is important. It's important because it receives a portion of our sales tax, which is about $500,000. And that's big. That's a big number considering that just the city will receive this year budgeted 1.8 million. And the EDC will get $500,000. And considering all the needs that we have, the city has for infrastructure, just looking at everything, I think is important for us as a council, and how that money has been spent, the direction that it has been going, and potentially a new direction. So the EDC started in 1996, and from 96 till today, it's received in revenues upward of $16 million. In 2017, the EDC had to borrow from the developer because there was no funds to renovate a building for a potential tenant. So there was no money in the fund in 2017. Since a new council came on in 2017, the expenses were halted, and currently the EDC has approximately $1 million in the fund balance. So the purpose of the EDC is for the economic development of Kennedale. And that's really what I want to make sure that we discuss going forward, that that's the direction that they're following, and that it doesn't appear to me that the direction that they were going worked. So I just want to offer maybe some new ideas and new direction so that we can get back to the purpose of the economic development for Kennedale. Obviously, we'll have a new city manager coming in, and I will have some new direction from the city manager, because the city manager will be the executive director of the EDC. And we can get back to providing that to Kennedale. These are just some of my ideas, but thank you for the opportunity to bounce them off of you guys. The bylaws for the EDC, it says that you have to be a Kennedale resident. And I was wondering what your thoughts would be on, or a business owner. Because there are a lot of business owners, I'm sorry, that to be on the board, did I say that? To be on the board, you have to be a Kennedale resident. That's in the bylaws. But we can change that if that's something that we want to consider, that you could be a Kennedale resident or own a business in Kennedale and serve on the Kennedale EDC.
So is that a question, or? I mean, to be completely honest, I wouldn't want to open it up to any business owners within Kennedale. The reason why is because you can be a business owner in Kennedale, but not live in Kennedale.
Correct.
So I don't want to open that up. it should remain the same as they are in Kennedale so that they know the city. If they are a business owner within that live in Kennedale, I would open it up to them, but no one outside of the city, even if they are a business owner.
Okay, and that's why I wanted to open it up for conversation because my opinion is that if you have a business in Kennedale, you have a strong roots here for the economic development of the city. So just something to think about.
It is, no, but my thing is that, I mean, I can own a business in Kennedale and live in, I don't know, Forney. Just because I own a business here doesn't mean I'm invested in Kennedale. And unfortunately, in some of these businesses, I feel that might be, it could be that way. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But that's why I would like to just keep it for business owners that are in Kennedale. I would open it up to that.
Anyone else?
I would like to, I mean, I understand both of y'all's positions. I would say, as far as Jan's point goes, business owners in Kennedale are invested in Kennedale. They're going to do everything they can to bring in as much traffic as they can. So the business owners may be able to help us figure out which other businesses would best help bring more traffic through. So, I mean, it seems to me that there's a lot of room for several businesses to work together to say, your business does this, and wouldn't it be great if we had another business who did something that would kind of bring in more customers to all spend their money here?
That's a point. Yeah.
I think that's a good point. You know, given the population that we have, given the number of businesses that we currently have in Kennedale, and I think it's a unanimous goal to bring additional business into our town. We need to look at ways to maximize the opportunity to have qualified leadership and business owners in a position that can make that influential decision. And if you are a business owner in Kennedale, then you know what it takes to run a business here, whether that's challenging, whether it's an easy button, you know what it takes. And by having that voice of experience, I think it would lend itself to a lot of positives.
And I believe that the city attorney has a statement.
I do. There are statutory restrictions on membership to the EDC. So you can be a resident of the city or you can be a resident of the county in which the major part of the area of the municipality is located. So that's Tarrant County. Or reside within 10 miles of the city's boundaries and in a county bordering the county in which the city is located. So they would still have to be a resident of Tarrant County or within 10 miles of our boundaries in an adjacent county.
So technically it's already open to them. Is that correct?
Well,
But it's Tarrant County would open it up to.
if your bylaws don't reflect that, we can change the
Correct.
bylaws, but we are restricted by what's in the state statute.
Right. Yeah, it would be changing the bylaws. Correct.
I would be open to mirroring it to what the state statute is. Considering that as an option.
I would agree with Jan wholeheartedly that the EDC is receiving $500,000 a year in tax revenues. And at this point, I think we all can agree that it seems like the EDC is somewhat broken or at least not motivated enough to move the city forward with some things that need to be done. So there are some very successful businessmen within the realms of Kennedale. And with that information from Drew, even when you reach out to Tarrant County, just look at the potential people that we could bring in here with probably not having to hire anybody. But that's something that we've talked about as well. But anyway, I think that it definitely needs to be looked at a little bit further. So my opinion on that one.
Let me add a little bit of thought to the topic. Currently, the EDC has been following the direction given in our master plan. And when you look at what Kennedale is, and by following that direction, the options are very limited for strategic business growth. I would like to suggest that in addition to potentially opening up the EDC to members of Tarrant County, we also discuss possibly taking another look at our comprehensive master plan. Not necessarily today, but that can be an opportunity for our future city manager and the EDC.
I think we're all in agreement with that, or I am.
Yeah, master plan does need to be looked at. Could you possibly go into more what the state statute is on this?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Could you possibly go into more of what the state statute is on the EDCs? As Austin was referencing to?
Yeah, well, I can give it to you in a nutshell. In the way I view the EDC is a funding mechanism for city projects. And it should be any project that's listed in the act. Those are the only projects you can spend money on. Now, some of the project definitions are more open-ended than others. Because of a city your size, you have more leeway for the board and the council to make a determination on whether something does or does not promote or expand new or existing business enterprises. I think there's possibilities of using funds for public infrastructure. But anything the EDC spends money on should be laid out in the state statute. You can't just do whatever it wants. So there's talk that the EDC's objectives are in line with the comprehensive plan, or they follow the comprehensive plan. There's no requirement for that in state statute. If Target or Home Depot came to the city manager's office and says, we want to be on Kennedale Parkway, the comprehensive plan addresses a lot of things. Its primary function is zoning. But there's nothing in state law that requires you or an EDC to follow the comprehensive plan in terms of economic development. It's common that that's in there. I haven't looked at your comprehensive plan in terms of what it says on economic development. That's not a requirement. I mean, most cities have EDCs that, they may have adopted plans or policies or strategies to guide them. My recommendation would never be to adopt a plan or policy that ties your hands on giving money to a specific project or, a good business opportunity.
My only problem with this entire thing, to be completely honest with you, is to have an outsider come in, whether they're a business owner in Kennedale or not. They could, I don't want to say that they would do horrible things because I'm perceiving things, but what if, something were to happen to where they would, possibly take the city in the wrong direction? That, I understand as we as council are, basically oversee them, but I still like to keep it local if possible. I'm
I would think that one thing that might make it more palatable if you're going to amend the bylaws anyway is maybe to add 2 more places and have those designated as, non-residents could fill those places. That way, not all of the seats.
I would agree with that.
And that way you're never going to have a majority of people on the board that don't live in the city, because it is, the revenue that belongs to the taxpayers. So that might be one way to look at it.
Also, the executive director is generally the city manager. I would actually look into taking that responsibility away from them so they could focus on other things and install an executive director sole.
Yeah, I think that's in the bylaws as well. I would ask Drew about that. I don't know if that's something that has to be that way, but I do know that it's written up that way in the Kennedale bylaws, that the executive director is the city manager.
Yeah, and that's pretty common in most cities, but that's not a requirement.
Well, since we're changing bylaws or, adopting new ones possibly, I think this would be one that we could also adopt as well.
Right.
And you could always leave the city manager as the executive director and still hire a consultant. And that way you have two people looking at any situation. So
That's kind of what I was thinking as well. So 'cause that
Therefore-
way you have someone that they're accountable to.
Yeah, therefore it's not, basically an omnipresent person.
A little bit more checks and balances.
Yeah.
Yeah, more checks and balances is, I agree. Also, so I've brought it up several times, but I'll go ahead and bring it up again. The EDC did use money to purchase some land from the water fund. And that amount is $171,000. And I would like for whoever is leading or guiding the EDC to consider paying the water fund back for that. I'm not quite sure where that needs to go to make that happen. Maybe when we finalize the new EDC board and everything, or the board member changes, or address that with the EDC. I'm not quite sure where to put that next. Leslie, can you help me with that?
I would think that you could just put it on an upcoming EDC agenda and ask for their consideration.
Okay.
Drew?
Perfect. There was about $350,000 that was spent on Link Street that was originally charged to the EDC and then reversed to the city. That's something that I'd have to work with the finance director on to see if, you know, what she sees, and I would like to do that as well to see if that's something that if that's even a possibility that the EDC would be willing to pay even half of that back, because our street fund is in need. I mean, our street fund is in a negative at this point. So,
Are there currently any funds that are earmarked for the EDC that would prohibit that?
We have is it $275,000 that we're going to need to use to repurchase the hotel land? That's the only thing I know of that's
So-
earmarked. 350.
350.
Okay, sorry, $350,000.
So 350 plus the 171, how much was Link Street? 350, that would actually put the EDC down in low in funds, so.
Well, if they halved it, I mean, even if, again, it was used, it was
Yes.
for the EDC and that was reversed, so anything that can help our street fund, because I mean, that's what they are there for, is the economic development of our city, and that is a need that we have. So I will work with the finance director on that, and I'll bring my file and kind of show you what I have, and we can go from there and see what your thoughts are. The other thought is on the Chamber of Commerce. I think the chamber was, I don't know what the right word is, worked hand in hand with the EDC. I think that is the way it was meant to be. The EDC paid about $400,000 to bring the chamber into the center of town center. And there was an agreement back in 2016 where the chamber was going to pay the EDC $2,000 a month for services, and the EDC would be able to use that building. I don't think that agreement is in place anymore. Okay. I don't think that the chamber is paying the EDC $2,000 a month. I haven't seen that. No, I didn't think so. So I would like to see whoever is over the EDC, that we kind of bring that back together, bring the chamber and the EDC to see what the chamber is working, how they're working together. So that the chamber is supporting the EDC. Because I think right now they're only paying $10 a month rent for that, for the property.
Sounds like they may need to get on the same page again. And one thing that you mentioned a moment ago in considering that having the EDC repay some of the previous funds to the street department, I would just want to be cautious that we don't draw down the EDC funds so far that they're not able to fulfill their purpose in the long run and be able to purchase property and projects for our economic development, growth and development.
I agree. I agree 100%. And I don't think going forward that will happen, where funds will be used or transferred like that without council being aware. So I'm comfortable with that. Any other thoughts on the chamber?
I do have a question on that, sorry. You said back in 2016, there was some sort of an agreement. Is there a paper trail or contract or anything like that showing that agreement?
Yes, I have it at home. I didn't bring it. I have, piles of EDC stuff. And it was called a cooperation, administrative cooperation services agreement or something like that. And it was, the intention was for the chamber to work closely with the EDC, and the EDC would get certain services from the chamber, and the EDC could use that building. But
Was there any kind of an expiration date on it, or was it left open?
I don't know if it just went away, and because in 2017, about that time when the new council come on, there were some major changes within the EDC. So I don't know if some of those things fell by the wayside, or if it's something that even we want to revisit, it's something that we can revisit.
I'm looking at the contract now, and the original term was July 1st, 2014 through September 30th of the same year, 2014.
And
The
therefore,
one I have, I think is 2016,
Okay.
but I didn't bring it with me. But there's a laundry list of things that the services that would be provided in that.
because, yeah, you're right, the chamber and the EDC do need to work hand in hand. Especially to support our businesses here. However, if there was any kind of a contract that, expired or went by the wayside or wasn't renewed, then we do need to look into that.
Yeah, I think we just need to look at it and just see.
Because according to the one that she just read off, it was 2014, but which means the contract is expired unless there was any kind of a renewal, which you say that you have at home.
I
so.
think mine was 2016, but again, I didn't bring it. But the most important thing to this conversation is that we kind of go back to seeing the services that are being provided, and is there anything additional that can be provided so that it can serve the purpose of economic development.
It looks like from this contract that the purpose of the $2,000 was mostly for provision of office space to the consultant that we had at the time, which was Jack Thompson.
Okay,
And-
mine has, it doesn't have that on there, but it does have a list of other services on the 2016 one.
Right. It says for services rendered pursuant, and there is a list on page 1 of that. And then office space is listed specifically.
Yeah,
If
for the
you could
EDC.
get her a copy of that one, and staff can research that a little more. It may even have an auto renew term, clause in there. I don't know. We would need to look at that and see.
I'd also like a copy of it, so.
And the other thing is just to have an overall plan for the land that the EDC owns. The EDC owns a lot of land. And it was discussed, I think in 2018, 19, I don't remember, but it was discussed. There was a list. It was presented to the EDC at the time, and the EDC said, well, let's go look at all of the land and just take a look at it and kind of come up with what we want to do come up with a plan. And since then, again, there's been changes. So just kind of going back to things that we need to get back on track with. And I think there's probably, I'm not exactly sure, but there could be anywhere from 10 to 20 different parcels or 10 to 20 different pieces of land off the top of my head. I have that information at home also, but I didn't bring it.
Let me pull that up. And they own, as of 2020, they own 1109 West Kennedale Parkway. And then 4 small lots, like in the Oak Crest area. 6820 Oak Crest Drive West, 5411 West Kennedale Parkway. Small lot on Municipal, the land that Reds is on, which they will no longer possess. 600 West Kennedale Parkway, and then the land out on Linda and Gale that had been purchased for the water tower at some point. And the town center, they own the land under those buildings. And then there's an area on Bloxham Park Road that I think was meant to be a business park at some point. Another thing to think about with the revenues is, we're not going to be receiving that rent every month
Mhm.
from Red's Roadhouse. So revenues are going to decline for the EDC going forward. Just one point I wanted to make.
The 500,000 though is just sales tax. It wasn't the property rentals. That's all I have.
What would be the process to amend the bylaws to allow for 2 new positions for Tarrant County residents and Kennedale business owners?
I would need to look at the state statutes. I think council may be able to do that on its own without EDC approval. I need to double check.
Okay, thank you.
Would that require a supermajority, a majority?
Yeah, that would just require a majority
Thank you.
if council could do that.
Yeah, on the bylaws that I'm looking at, I don't know about the statutory, but it says the bylaws may be amended at any time and from time to time, either by majority vote of directors, then in office with approval of city council, or by the city council itself at its sole discretion. Then under the organizational control, it says the city council at its sole discretion and at any time may alter or change the structure, organization, or activities of the corporation, including the termination, subject to any limitation on the impairment of contracts entered, foregoing notwithstanding the city at all times during which any indebtedness of the corporation will maintain beneficial interest in the corporation. It looks like we can. That's all I have. I'm excited about what I don't want this to be a negative. I'm very excited about what the Economic Development Corporation can do. I think I've always felt like Kennedale is very special, and it's like in a special place. It's like a gem in the rough, you know, right here, all sandwiched between Arlington and Mansfield and Fort Worth, but yet it's unique. And building on that uniqueness, I think that there's a lot of potential there.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Gary, do you have any comments? Okay. Thanks.
It is, it's exciting, the potential that could possibly be there. I do definitely agree with you on that. I just don't want us to get, snake bit by an outsider. That's my main thing. I just don't want that to happen.
It sounds like then the only bylaw change that was discussed would be the membership. There's one section 7.07 stated reports. The board shall present to the city council for review at the next applicable council meeting, the minutes of each board meeting as an activity report detailing the projects and work accomplished since the board's previous meeting. I don't think that's been done, but if we could be sure that that's done from now forward. I don't recall seeing the minutes.
Okay, just include their minutes in the packet.
Yes, under the report section, I would think. Thank you.
Oh, I have one more thing. Thank you for reminding me of that. And maybe I didn't see it, but in our budget, under the EDC, does the EDC have a separate budget that's different from what we're seeing? No, this is it? Okay. Okay, because there wasn't anything under the expenditures. There was an amount that's not, there's an amount of expenditures, but it doesn't add up with what we can see. So I assume what was missing was the hotel piece, maybe? Okay. Well, there's nothing under expenditures, and it says that total fund expenditure is 625,073. And I'm just showing the debt service expenditure of 300,000 and the town center expenditures of 61. That doesn't add up to the 625
Is this the proposed budget or the current year budget?
proposed. It's the one in their book. Yes. Right? Right? Oh, okay, that's what that part is. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Staff, do you have direction that you need, or do you have any other comments or questions for council?
So it sounds like that we would like to see an amendment to the bylaws, information from Drew about what the process on that looks like. And then are there any other directions from the council at this time?
To meet with them about the water big price.
All right. So my feeling on that would be that if we're concerned about the street fund, maybe we focus on a portion of that being repaid rather than coming at them with several deductions from the amount of money that they have.
So rather than the water, go with the streets.
Lakita, would you have any input on that?
Because I would not do the streets. I would back off the streets. But I like the idea of the money going to the street fund over the water fund.
Lakita, which one do you feel more comfortable
I
with?
feel comfortable with the 171,000 going to the water fund.
Okay.
I don't know about the street thing.
Okay.
Because this has been, looks like it's been charged and then taken off and I would actually have to consult with our auditor before doing anything with that because it's not cut clear exactly what happened. And sometimes they have a problem with us going back for something several years ago and saying, oh, we just forgot to do this. I mean,
Okay.
that is going to take more work. The Link Street thing is going to take more work.
Okay.
So I would not suggest doing anything with that right now. But the 171,000, I think we can clean cut do that because it was
Okay.
very clear and I know exactly what happened there. So
Okay.
that's my opinion on it.
Okay, well, can staff ask that if we go forth and present that to EDC, that can be the last discussion of things to pay back from the EDC?
Yes.
Okay, I will present it for their consideration then.
Okay, anything else? No? Okay, let's go to the next agenda item then, executive session. We will go into executive session pursuant to section 551.074, city manager, and the time is 6:11 PM. Okay, I'll call the meeting back into open session and the time is 6:52 PM. Could I have a roll call, please?
Jan Joplin, place 1. Gary Mitchell, place 2. Julie Jacobson, place 3. Austin Degenhart, place 4.
Present.
James Connor, place 5.
Present.
Mayor Linda Rhodes.
Present. If we could all stand, please, for invocation and pledges of allegiance to the U.S. and Texas flags. Councilmember Mitchell.
Father, we thank you for this day and this opportunity to come before you, Lord, and make some decisions that would greatly benefit our city. Father, with you giving us the direction, Father, we ask for wisdom and knowledge and understanding, Lord, of your ways. Father, we thank you for your son that paid the price for our sins, Father, that he would be able to be with us at all times. Father, we ask you to watch over our city employees, Father, our citizens, Father. We thank you for our police, our fire. Father, we ask you to put a hedge of protection around them and keep them from all harm, Father. Father, we thank you for our government. Father, we know that the Bible says we're to honor them and to pray for them. So today, Father, we lift them up to you. We don't always agree with their decisions, Lord, but we know that you're working hard on our behalf. So today, Father, we honor you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, now visitor forum. We have 2 that signed up. Leslie, do you know, is Daniel Joe Bennett present? Okay, we'll come back to that one. They did sign up ahead of time via email. Request to speak form, Deanna Gail Uranga. Can you please make sure the mic's on? I'm not sure if it is. I can't.
Not sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Several months ago, you guys passed a resolution and added the spouse of a deceased 100% disabled veteran to the criteria for the water discount. I've been trying to get it for 4 months now. And I'm told today that they still don't have a current resolution, so they can't.
Okay.
And so they referred me back to you guys. So here I am. So what do I need to do?
Okay, staff, Leslie, can you be sure that that's taken care of?
Thank you.
It's my understanding that we've provided the resolution to Arlington, or the ordinance to Arlington. So we can check in on why that's not been
We'll follow
implemented.
up with that.
Okay, thank you.
you. Yes. Daniel Bennett, could you please approach the podium, please? This is the visitor forum section, and yes, you made it. You made it on time, yes. If you could please just state your name and who you're with.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Daniel Bennett. I live at 408 Pemberton in White Settlement, Texas. It's on the west side of Fort Worth. Just going to read you my prepared statement. In January of 2020, TAD board member Richard Diott requested from TAD staff the number of protests heard by the ARB for the years of 2013 through 2019. He also gathered the same information from 4 other large appraisal districts. Mr. Diott then presented his comparison to the Senate Committee on Finance chaired by Senator Nelson on February 25th of 2020. This This presentation, as an invited guest, prompted Senator Nelson to send a letter to the Board of Directors of the Appraisal District on the 30th of April of 2020. I'm still out of breath. Which is, I hopefully has been supplied to the council. The letter requests investigating the software used by the district if it's playing a role in the increased number of protests in relation to other major metropolitan counties. This letter was suppressed by the district by not distributing the letter to each board member, which was received by the district on May 11th of 2020. The letter was placed into the agenda packet, though, on June 5th, 3 weeks later. But it was not inserted into the agenda packet for the public online. During the June 5th meeting, the letter was not allowed to be discussed. On the agenda was an action item to move forward with the audit services to investigate the software, which did pass 3-2. This is where everything just fell apart. Soon after this meeting, members asked to be recalled. 2 of them asked to be recalled. Each sent a letter to the respective voting block. John Molyneux was the 3rd yes vote in the action item, and Mike O'Donnell was the chairman of the board. I did sue the district, each board member, and 8 taxing units for the misuse of the recall statute in the 96th District Court. This recall request was so the taxing entities could control the process. Had each member just resigned, which most people do when they have a position they can't fulfill, then all nominations from every taxing unit within that group would have went to the remaining board members, which would have been 3 voting members for vetting and selection. This vacuum in leadership, because the chair had resigned, was ignored by the chief appraiser, Mr. Law. Mr. Law ignored requests by 2 of the 3 remaining board members for an immediate meeting so a chair may be appointed. These 2 board members are Mr. Diot and Mr. Lasada. And the 2 were joined by a majority of taxing entities to no avail. That was spearheaded by Mayor Jacob of Lakeside, Texas. And he is available for comment if you want to call. It's on the website. Lakeside is northwest Tarrant County. Senator Nelson's letter needed addressed in a timely fashion by the board. To this day, Senator Nelson's letter has not been addressed by the TAD Board of Directors.
Mr.
16
Burnett, I'm
months have
sorry.
passed.
You'll need to wrap up your statement,
Yes,
please.
ma'am. I got one more sentence.
One more sentence.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. To this day, Senator Nelson's letter has not been addressed by the TAD BOD. 16 months have passed. This, in my opinion, is by design. And this arrogance is apportioned to our chief appraiser, Mr. Law, and the current chairperson, Catherine Wildman. Thank you for your time. And that's the first time that's ever happened to me. And thank you for being gracious. Should I continue to fill out my form and hand it in?
Leslie, do you need that or this is?
We have your email. Thank you.
Okay, thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you, you too. Next items are reports and announcements, updates from the city council, Mayor Pro Tem Joplin.
Well, we had a memorial on 9/11. And I just want to give big thanks to Ken Michaels, who's here. And just what you did, and the 2 that worked with you were right. And give thanks to them for assisting you. That was a big job, and I know it was from the heart, and you had been working on doing that for about 4 years. And so I'm glad, thanks to the chief, that you were able to work with Ken to get that done. It meant a lot to me personally. I know it did to a lot of the citizens, to the people that were horribly affected by that tragic event. And just a little bit about how you restored that, because it was very detailed. Every single letter, symbol, star had to be cleaned out first. Had to be completely, because the paint that was used wasn't appropriate. So it had to be cleaned out first before it could even be repainted. So it was very, and you're dealing with 1 inch by 1 inch a lot of toothbrushes, I bet, but thank you for doing that. And Chief, thank you for your part in that memorial, and Mayor as well for speaking. And I'm sorry that I wasn't able to attend. I was at my daughter's in Tucson, but thank you so much. Our senior center is open, and it's open, help me out with is Monday through Friday?
Yes, Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we resumed bingo last week. So tomorrow will be their second game of bingo.
And bingo is on
Wednesday
Wednesdays?
mornings at 10:30,
Wednesdays
yeah.
at 10:30, okay. So seniors, if you're watching, come in and come to the senior center. It's back open. And if anyone is interested in being on a board, just encourage you to apply online. It's very easy to do. And I just want to say that it's great seeing our city come together.
Councilmember Gary Mitchell. If they're not read, yes. Go ahead. Austin Degenhart,
No update today. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Connor.
I had the distinct pleasure of going to a TML conference meeting on the 16th, which they had a lesson in civility. I'm trying to work on that myself because I know I don't have a filter, so it kind of comes out bluntly. So sorry about that, but I'm working on it. Also, the 9/11 memorial, I was there at both of the remembrance ceremonies. Kenneth, amazing job. Courtney, amazing job. Stephen, amazing job. I mean, it looks brand new. And I couldn't be more happy and proud to actually visit that memorial and stand there and remember. Sorry. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to echo those sentiments on the 9/11 memorial event. And thanks to Ken and everyone involved, the chief. Also later that day at 1 p.m., there was a memorial ride. So we had Miss Sue West attend with others for that event as well. The weather was pretty cooperative, so we were very fortunate it didn't rain or anything. So the senior center reopening was on the 8th, and then last Wednesday was the 15th, and we had the official ribbon cutting. And for those that might have missed it, it was a really good turnout. The seniors are so thankful to have that reopen now so that they can reconnect with their friends. We're still working on, a lot of things, but at least now the doors are open for them. And a big thanks to Rosie and Leslie for making that happen. They really appreciated everything that was done that day. And attended the TML Region 8 meeting along with Council Member James and Julie and Leslie, the interim city manager, and that was very good. Also, the Tarrant County Transportation Bond, the update on that, we did receive an email on the 16th from GK Minas. I believe he's the county administrator there. And Kennedale's Little School Road project was named on there. Of course, this still has to go to the election. That's in November. And provided that all passes, then we are on the list for the funding so far. So far, so good. The other item, actually, I think that was it. I know that we are in the process of, Rosie is in the process of getting the mayor's portrait recognition wall updated. It was very difficult to locate a frame that matches, but she was able to do that and at the same time use a local business. So that's always a very positive. Leslie, do you have anything to report?
I just have a couple things. Did you want me to announce these or would you rather announce the event?
Yes, yeah, go ahead. And I just want to also mention, we have a proclamation that's declaring Senior Center Month as September 2021. I'm not going to read the proclamation, but it will be presented to the Senior Center so that they can post that up on their bulletin board. And yes, if you would go ahead and announce those other things. Thank you.
Okay, First United Methodist Church is hosting their quarter auction next Tuesday, September 28th from 6 to 8 PM. And it will be benefiting our senior center. So we're thankful to them for that. And we encourage all of you to attend if you can. Concert in the Park is being planned right now by the Parks Board for Saturday, October 9th. The tentative times are 10 AM to 6 PM. If you are interested in that, you can reach out to Lori Stevenson in the Public Works Department. Bark in the Park is scheduled for Saturday, October 16th. Did I get that right this time? I think I've emailed that date wrong about 4 times at this point. So that will be in Town Center Park this year, correct? From 9 to noon, and JD Graves is hosting that. He's our animal control officer. And the Chamber Luncheon in October will be on the 20th at 11:30 AM at Life Fellowship, and it will be the State of the City address this month. So for next month, Mayor Rhodes will be presenting that. So we encourage all of you to attend that as well. Public Safety Open House will be Saturday, October 6th. Nope, I still got that one wrong. Saturday, October 23rd. I apologize. From 10 AM to noon at the fire station. And then Trunk or Treat will be Saturday, October 30th in Town Center Park from 5 to 7. Christmas tree lighting will be Tuesday, December 7th in Town Center Park from 5:30 to 8. And we are currently looking for a Santa Claus. So if anyone knows anybody, send them my way. Other than that, the only other thing I would note is just to be cautious with the mosquito situation. We did have one mosquito that tested positive for West Nile on North Road this past week. The Public Works Department has been treating out there today, and if we get another positive test, then we'll escalate our efforts on that. But just make sure you're dumping any standing water and, keeping your long sleeves on in the evening around dusk when you're outside. If anybody on the council has any questions about the other updates I've sent in the past few days, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is financial reports for the city and the EDC. Lakita Sutton, Director of Finance.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You have the financials included in your packets. I don't have any highlights for any of the financial reports. The EDC didn't bring up any concerns or anything when we presented their last 3 sets of financials to them. If you look at the city financials, everything is tracking along very well. We are currently at 106% of our revenue. So we're looking really good on the side of revenue. Our expenditures are tracking about right on time at 91.6%. That's 11 months into the fiscal year. So really close on expenditures. There's a lot of moving parts still. Of course, we know this time into the fiscal year. There will still be revenue that we can expect, a little bit more from sales tax, and hopefully we'll still meet our goal there. We're there on property tax already, which is normal for this time of year. So if you look at that front page, you can just kind of see where we are on all of the major funds for expenditures and revenue. The only other one that looks a little bit off, and of course, for good reason, the stormwater fund, we are only at 21% of our expenditures in stormwater. And we know we were expecting that from losing our public works director and some of the more expensive or capital projects kind of being put on the back burner. So whenever that position is filled, I'm sure we'll see more expenses tracking in that fund. But other than that, I can answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions from council? Okay.
So on the Park Dedication Fund,
Mhm.
It shows a year-to-date fund balance projection of about $600,000.
Mhm.
And the budget showed about $300,000.
That is due to the developments that has come into the city. So, of course, whenever new development comes in, we have additional revenue that we add to the park dedication fund, the water, and the streets fund as well. And so that is just a result of that.
So I guess that-
That in addition to the impact funds, the impact fees that those developments pay.
Like, for example, on the Joplin Road development, each apartment, they pay $1,200 to the park fund. So that was 270 units paying $1,200 to the park fund in lieu of donation of parkland. So
Mhm.
it's,
And can you tell us what the park dedication fund can be used for?
Only park improvements. So, strictly things like shade structures and benches and things like that, things to enhance the parks. So.
That's excellent. So I
Mhm.
assume the budget, when it's final, that this number will be updated, that that'll be the new number on there?
Yes, yes.
And the other thing that I noticed that was jumped out in a very good way is that there is the revenues are over expenses rather than the
Rather
opposite
than
way
under.
as,
Mhm.
as we're moving towards the end of the year. We only have 1 month left,
Mhm.
and it looks like we are currently have a positive, at least for the end of August. We're at a positive and not a negative.
As of the end of August, we are at a positive and not a negative.
476, 625, so a somewhat healthy positive
Mhm.
because we were expecting a drawdown. So that's really good. And which brings the ending fund balance to almost 3 million with that 476 added to the fund balance of what we started at the 2453218 number.
Mhm. That's what it's showing as of the end of August. Now, we know that we still have a lot of expenditures that have to come through. We have the audit that has to be done. They're going to move certain liabilities over to expenditures. So we don't want to get too jumpy about that, but we are looking really good right now as at the end of August. Remember, the original budget, we budgeted a drawdown of over 700,000, and we came back to the council in June, I think it was, we adjusted that. We tried to reduce expenditures and see where we could increase revenue. We were able to do that. So with the amended budget, we are still projecting a drawdown of 309,000. So that is the last presentation that was formally made to the council with any type of formal projections that had been studied and presented. So while we are looking good, we still want to keep in mind with where we're budgeting.
Right. And like we had emailed back and forth a little bit yesterday, and that this is, the budget is a plan. But I did look back last year, and you were pretty much right on the mark with last year's financial as you presented to council. So I really appreciate that in looking at, where we are in August.
Thank you.
I feel like that we could potentially we'll talk to the rest of council, look at potentially looking at the starting fund balance for the budget at the 2,453,000 conservatively.
I don't recommend that. What I would recommend is that what was presented to council and what this last council approved, these are the numbers that are solid and that are reported and that are made public and that are published. And so if we amended a budget If we adopted a budget and we came back and we amended it in the same way that we adopted with an ordinance, that ordinance is what we need to go by to project fund balance. And so when we are budgeting for fiscal year 22, we are using the projected fund balance as of the last budget amendment. We do that because if there is something that has changed or some formal change that's significant enough, you as council members have the opportunity to suggest that the city manager do a budget amendment. Unfortunately, we are too late to do a budget amendment for fiscal year 21. The last one we just did a few months ago. So we want to always be as conservative as we can when we're budgeting. That's how I'm taught to budget. That's what my education and my training as a finance director in municipalities tells me to do. And that's what our code of ethics tell us to do. We should be budgeting very conservatively so that at the end of the year, we should absolutely have more revenue than we thought we would have. That's the way that you do it so that you're able to, you know, remain in business and not end up, you know, going back to the county or something detrimental happening. So that was kind of a conversation that Jan and I were talking about, you know, on email. What fund balance should we use moving forward going into fiscal year 22? Well, we should use the one that the council adopted when we did the budget amendment. And that's my take on that.
And if we wanted to, so sorry, if we look at with this new information, because it is new information as of the end of August, we are very, very close to the end of the year. We have 1 month left. And if we wanted to look at the fund balance conservatively at the 2453 number, which is the number that was used originally for the it was the end of the, it was on the amended. Yeah, it was the amended 2021. So if we, in looking at this, each council person looking at this, if we wanted to look at a scenario number 5, because we were presented with 4 different scenarios. If we wanted to look at a scenario 5 using that fund balance, it conservatively, it brings us to a 17.5% fund balance. And that's not even taken into consideration the expected ARPA funds that are going to come in to mitigate the drawdown that was proposed.
If we plugged in a $2.4 million beginning fund balance, we would have, utilizing the current expenditures and revenue and drawing down the $899,000, we would have a 17.5% fund balance versus the 11.1%. I caution you against that. The reason is because the last amended budget, we did project a drawdown. And to jump to say, actually the 2.4 would not be conservative. What's conservative is what we've amended the budget to. So, you know, that's, you know, these are policy decisions, you know, that you guys have to make. And the city manager has presented you with 4 options as of our last council meeting. We have a consensus on those 4 options. And I would just caution against going anything other than that. We have a budget ordinance to approve tonight as well as a tax rate ordinance. That tax rate ordinance is written to support the budget as presented. So.
And I would just like to remind the council what happened the last time that the tax rate to support the budget was not adopted. We went on negative outlook with the rating agencies. That just got changed last week. They look at the published official numbers. that's what we have to look at.
Do you think that it's, so based on what I'm seeing, I guess this is my struggle. I hear what you're saying. I do. I hear what you're
And
saying.
I hear what you're saying, and
and
I
I thank you for
understand
that.
the want to reduce the tax rate. And I feel like that we found a way to be able to do that to some extent.
I do not disagree with you, and I thank you for that. Where we're at right now is a difference of about $90,000 between going to the no tax increase net effective. We're at $90,000. And based on what I'm seeing here, I'm seeing we're easily going to cover that $90,000. That's what I'm seeing.
But the actual numbers that are published and that the rating agencies will look at don't show that.
They're gonna look at the way that you budgeted. And I can just tell you guys, we have worked so hard in the past 6 weeks to get our rating outlook from negative to stable. I mean, it was a lot of work. And I know this is not the fault of some of you and everything that we went down the road that we went down, but it just doesn't show financial prudence to have a consistent, have a consensus on what we're going to do. And then we have several discussions about it. Each of you have had an opportunity to come to the city manager if you wanted more budget discussions, but to change the plan at a meeting, it's just, you know, I don't know if we want to go back down that road. It doesn't look good for us.
And I do want to apologize for bringing this up last minute. However, the information just presented itself, kind of jumped out on the page at me as I'm looking over the financials. And I'm looking over it, looking like, okay, our revenues are higher than our expenses.
And this is very good news, Jan.
It is very
And
good
so
news.
what we should do and what I will advise is that after we adopt the budget and after we receive our ARPA funding and see what uses we can apply it to, let's come back and do a budget amendment. And then if it still looks this way and we want to see where, you know, next year, if we want to lower it more, a penny or two or whatever we're able to do, but let's not count on one-hit wonders to bail us out when we're consistently budgeting for more expenditures than we are revenue. We need to get out of that mindset before we're able to just go with an effective rate.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I don't disagree that our expenses should be less than revenues. And I think in all the budgets that I've looked at, and I've looked back over almost every year, I don't, maybe going back 20 years, I think there might have been two years that the revenues were more than expenses that were budgeted. So it does seem to be a way of the Kennedale way. I'm not saying that's a right way, and it certainly is not my budget. I don't budget that way. I personally don't budget that way. That's why I was so excited to see. And again, if I had seen this coming, I would have brought it up at the other meetings. You know, I would have 100%.
Well, it's gonna come. It's gonna come every year because as long as I'm budgeting, I'm going to budget very conservatively. So it's gonna come every year. That is what we are meant to do. We are meant to grow our fund balance so that when emergencies come up, we have something to fall back on and we're still within our financial policies. And so as long as I budget and as long as I have recommendations to the city manager, we're gonna have good news. I'm gonna do everything in my power to ensure that if I can. If you can remember, it was the same thing this time last year.
But it came in October.
We were a little bit lower. We did receive a bunch more sales tax than we anticipated. Well, because when we redid the budget, we expected less revenue because of what? Because of COVID. Well, that didn't happen. We got more revenue. Great news. Let's continue to add to the fund balance so that next year or the year after that, we can look at a tax rate decrease with no problems.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, I agree with what you're saying and I have no disagreement with it. For us as, and I love the fact that we have someone that's budgeting conservatively. What I want as council is to see the 11% and also that, yes, we are tracking where there's not going to be a drawdown. I'd like to see both scenarios, that this is an ultra conservative at 11%. However, based on how we're tracking now towards the end of the year, it appears that we are not going to have a drawdown. Thus, our fund balance will be healthier than was predicted.
I think it will be, I'm not gonna go that far. I'll say that I think it will be healthier than what we budgeted for. Will it be much healthier? I don't know how much healthier at this point. I can't sit here and tell you that at this moment. Because to make projections, when we make revenue and expenditure projections, we need to do that formally. We need to do that as a group in a meeting, the same way that we did when we did the budget amendment. And so, you know, you guys are policymakers, you make the decision, you know, and we can advise you the best that we can.
And I appreciate that. And I am thankful that it is good news. I'm thankful that we are building our fund balance. That's good news. We need the 17% is certainly a lot better than 11%. You know, we're getting there. Plus, that's not to mention the expected mitigation of the drawdown. So there is definitely more than, you know, the 90,000 that we need for the no effective. Seems to me, based on what I'm looking at, is there to do that. And that's what the citizens elected me to do, was to look closely at this to see, with, again, Kennedale being the 4th highest taxes in Tarrant County. I mean, that was what I heard across the board from people is, how do we do that? How do we bring the taxes down? What can we do to bring taxes down? That was the number one thing. So,
I understand. I totally understand. I just ask that, please, when you're making your decisions, look at where we've been. Look at where we've been and where we came from. When I arrived here, it wasn't shortly after that I was immediately contacted by S&P saying, hey, you guys are in big trouble here. Why'd you do this? Why'd you vote for a budget and didn't vote for the tax rate to support it? It makes no sense. It took us from then all the way up until now. It was even a job for us to try to get this 6 million that we're getting tonight. We had to work so hard with Samco and the plethora of questions that we were getting from the rating agency in trying to make this work. So I want you to do your job that you were elected to do, and I appreciate that. And I just ask that we all just kind of look at where we came from, where we're at now, and where we're trying to go. And Leslie, if you have anything to add.
I would just remind everyone that the adopted fund balance policy is 18 to 25%, correct?
Yes.
So even with that, we're still not meeting our policy, even with the number you're stating. So, you know, we've discussed the tax rate. Staff has implemented it. I would just ask the council to stick with the plan.
And I would echo that sentiment. I work with numbers just like Lakita does every day. And to be quite honest with you, what she's saying is actually 100% spot on. You are taught to budget conservatively so that you can grow your fund balances. Because if my clients didn't do that on their daily basis, they'd be broke right now. I mean, it's that simple. So, and to get it from a negative rating to a stable rating on through S&P, it's no small feat. It really isn't. It's actually a tough job. And I don't envy her. I do her job and I don't want to do her job sometimes.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I'm actually with Lakita on this one. I think we should stay where we are with the published amendment, with the published budget as soon as we vote on, I guess. And, you know, in a couple of months, if we feel that we need to go ahead and, you know, take another look at it or do an amendment at that point in time, I think that we can. However, right now, I think we should stick with what we have because we don't want to go off script. We did that already and it was horrible.
Okay, just a reminder, this item is financial reports for the city and the EDC. Okay, so let's get back on track.
Okay.
Does anyone else have a question relating to that, to our finance reports? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lakita.
Sure.
Let's move on to consent agenda. Does anyone have an item they wish to remove from the consent agenda? No, then I'll open the floor for a motion.
Mayor, I do have a couple of items I'd like to remove. And looking at the consent agenda, it references meeting minutes from August 17th, 24, and 31st. And I have not seen copies of those meeting minutes.
August the 24th and August the 31st.
17, 24, and 31.
I sent out an email. Did anyone else get it?
Yeah.
I've received the email. Do you wish to remove those items or?
If an email was sent, I must have
Okay.
missed that one.
We can either postpone them or you can abstain or
I'll abstain.
they're not. They were provided via email. I finished them over the weekend. They weren't ready for the packet. I apologize for that. Well, and, right, and we can postpone those items if the
Yes,
council
we
prefers.
can postpone those items if someone wants to make a motion to do so. We're still open for a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to postpone the minutes from August 17th, 24th, and 31st until the council has had time to review them.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone those 3 sets of minutes.
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all voted in favor to postpone the August 17th, the August 24th, and the August 31st sets of minutes from the consent agenda. Okay, let's open up the floor for a second motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes from June 15th, July 22nd, and August 10th.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we do have a second. Just to note that the June 15th minutes, as it's posted on our agenda, it says adoption of amended minutes. Okay, so everyone's clear on that, okay? Open the floor for a vote. Please raise your hand if you're in favor. Okay. All in favor? Now, items for individual consideration. Consider adoption of an ordinance authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery of up to 6 million in aggregate principal amount of City of Kennedale, Texas. It's for our CO, our certificates of obligation. And you have the verbiage on your agenda. I'm not going to read all of that. So I'm going to turn this over to Lakita, Director of Finance and Information Technology.
Mayor and council, we have discussed the 6 million at length, I think. We are at the point now where we are ready to look at the final pricing and to go ahead and authorize, hopefully, the ordinance on this evening. Andrew Friedman is here from Samco, and he's going to take a couple of minutes to walk you through what that looks like, what that's doing for our future tax rate analysis. And just keep in mind that this 6 million is already included with our debt rate that is proposed within our tax rates. And we were able to do that with no increase in the INS tax rate. So unless you have any questions for me, I'm going to bring Andrew up.
Thank you.
Good evening. Madam Mayor and council members, Andrew Friedman with Samco Capital Markets. I represent the city as financial advisor when it comes to your debt portfolio and borrowing. As Lakita mentioned, we were in the market this morning, received competitive bids from investment banks across the country on your $6 million certificate of obligation offering. The results of those bid results that were taken at 11 a.m. are behind the first page. Before we step into that, and germane to the conversation you all were just having, we went through the credit rating process. Both Leslie and Lakita put a lot of time and effort into that. And as indicated, they revised our rating. The rating itself remains AA-. They put us on a negative credit watch some time back, which means that they see a greater than 50-50 chance of downgrading the city within 18 months. So we've had that revised now. We haven't had our credit rating upgraded. It's a pat on the back to say you're moving in the right direction, but The results are not in yet. We are still adopting deficit budgets and drawing down reserves, which frankly are not high enough to begin with. GFOAT and every finance industry group within the municipal bond market community and the CFOs of the municipal businesses recommend 25%. And it's for good reason. There's plenty of places and plenty of times where you have natural disasters that require you to expend a lot of money in very short order before you ever get repaid from FEMA. And there's just lots of different types of things that come up. Certainly you can get repaid from FEMA in that instance, but it takes time. I have cities on the coastal bend who are still waiting on millions of dollars from FEMA that's already been approved from Hurricane Harvey in 2017. So getting to that 25% fund balance needs to remain a priority. It's great to make progress and get up to 17%. That's still not high enough. And your fund balance policy of 18 to 25% is good. That's not great. 25% really should be the minimum at which you're setting your fund balance. And I would say, in addition to that, that you all in particular should look at that 25% fund balance, because Standard & Poor's does not look favorably on a city council in a city who, after adopting a budget, drops their tax rate 4 cents at a level that will not support that budget. That doesn't make anybody look good in that instance. And so with those things in mind, you're making progress in the right way. Getting that negative outlook removed from our credit rating is a good thing, the results of which are bearing fruit right here. We're locking in 20-year financing at a fixed interest rate at a TIC, which is roughly the average interest rate of 1.61%. Rates are very, very low right now generally. Even then, these are still some of the lowest rates I've seen, and we've sold a lot of bonds, certificates of obligations for cities all over the state of Texas in the last month. So this is a real feather in the cap of you all as the governing body at the city, a real feather in the cap for Lakita Sutton and for Leslie managing this process year in and year out through what's been a pretty difficult time. And so very pleased with that result. But we had 8 bidders show up, or 7 bidders, excuse me. FHN Capital Markets out of Tennessee and has a Houston base here as well, was the low bidder at 1.61%. You can see the bids are pretty close for those first 4, gives you a great indication and confidence that you're getting the best rates out there in the market. So very pleased with that. Oh, I'm sorry. Behind that, and this is something that you all looked at previously when we went through that notice of intention process. If you remember, that notice of intention was adopted, has to run in your paper and on your website for 46 days before you can consider the bids that we're now here to do. And so we got the certified values in from Tarrant Appraisal District. Those values and your tax rate goals are incorporated into the analysis. You can see we've grown at an average growth rate of around 7.5% over the last decade. You'll see here, we're really only expecting to grow, and this is just conservative financial practice for at a rate, I'm sorry, of 3% for 2 years, and then no growth thereafter. And that's by design. Just like you conservatively budget your revenues and expenditures, we want to conservatively budget the growth that we expect to see, so that we're not setting a debt service that's growing with time where we're banking on having to have that growth. And so the benefit here is we're able to sell the $6 million in certificates of obligation. We're going to pay them off over the course of 20 years, and we're going to do that at a tax rate that doesn't exceed the prior year's INS tax rate. As we get more growth, as our existing debt starts to mature and go away, that leaves you with a capacity and decisions in future years. Do you issue debt like you are now, where you can issue debt to fund needed capital projects and maintain that INS tax rate? Or do you allow your tax rate to go down and not fund capital projects? Cities, unfortunately, and schools, you're not like other businesses. The only way to really fund capital projects is to issue debt. Paying for streets is really only done through the levy of taxes. And so this is really the process by which we manage that, being able to leverage the growth that we hope to get, the increase in values, and manage that within the tax rate that you all as a governing body determine is what the balance, what the voters want and what your citizens want and what you can afford. And so we believe that this does exactly that. You can see that our tax rate for this year staying in line with last year's, and you can see in future years, it's going to go down, and it's going to go down even assuming that we're not going to grow anymore 2 years from now. Certainly the hope and the expectation is we will, and we'll have other capacity to fund projects that you all determine as a city council in future years. And that capacity begins potentially next year, and certainly the year after that. As you look at the column 6, there you can see with the adoption of this debt, you can see we're around $1.6 million for the next few years, and then it starts dropping pretty precipitously. That capacity will allow you to fund capital projects, whatever they may be, that would be paid for from the INS fund. And so with that, the only other thing for me to bring to your attention is with the approval of these certificates of obligation tonight, city would expect the funds in your bank account, $6 million net of all the costs of issuance, underwriter's discount, et cetera, on October 20th. To be in your bank and ready to spend towards the projects. And I know that of this $6 million, there's a portion that's for an ambulance that's going to be amortized over 10 years so that you're not paying for an ambulance far in excess of its useful life. It is being separately amortized over 10 years. And then the balance for the streets and the fire truck. So with that, I'm happy to answer any and all questions that you have, and anything that I may have left out, I'm happy to circle back over.
Okay, go ahead, Jan. Thank you for that very much. What is your fee for this?
I do not have that in front of me. I can tell you that the cost of issuance on this were $100,568.80. That is a mostly finalized cost of issuance, but that is not final. We're still awaiting invoices for things like printing of the official statement. We've got a rating fee that you pay to Standard & Poor's to do this. Bond counsel, your bond attorney who offers the tax exempt opinion and provides all the legal documents, paying agent registrar fees and other things. So it's not finalized yet. That's the placeholder that's built into this for that.
And that was 100,000 roughly?
It's $100,568.80. And to the extent when we get the invoices before closing, there's money left over, it would be paid back to the city in the closing memorandum that sends the wires from the bond purchaser, FHN, distributes the money to the various parties.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other council? Any questions? No?
So as far as this, I was looking through the document. I'm looking for anything that specifies as to repayment of this.
Are you looking at the ordinance in front of you?
Correct.
Okay, and I don't know if you have the final ordinance because it was just provided this afternoon once we had the bid results in and we knew the final structure. This will be paid back just as all of our other debt is, principal payments annually, once per year, and then interest payments twice annually on February 1st and August 1st of each year for 20 years at a fixed interest rate.
And so will there be included a provision that says the city could pay back
That is
early
correct.
without a penalty?
These bonds, just like most of our other debts, some of the privately placed ones don't have what's known as a call feature, which is what you're referring to. These will be callable February 1st of 2030 at par plus accrued interest, which means you can take them from the investor at that time without any penalty. The investors have protection, and this is a standard, what's known as a 10-year call, where you cannot take those bonds from them for a decade. That's basically guaranteeing they're collecting interest over that time. After that, we could pay them off early, or as we have done in the past when we've had lower interest rates than what was outstanding, we've been able to refinance them for savings.
And as far as what we can use this $6 million for, I know part of it was for the ambulance, right? Have we done everything we can in the language, in the ordinance or the contract to make sure that we can to expand what we can use the funds for as much as possible?
You are legally prohibited from spending them on just whatever you want.
Right.
Within that ordinance, you'll see the use of proceeds, and that's written fairly broadly, and you can only write it so broadly. The Attorney General for the state of Texas, who reviews all bond transactions in the state of Texas, and they have to provide their blessing before you can close, will only allow so much leeway. Within this, you've got the ability to purchase the ambulance, fire truck, and streets, and all incidental improvements there too. So that could include drainage upgrades to the extent needed. It could include utility relocation, things like that. There's a lot of verbiage in there that you're not specifying which street you're doing, and that's also by design, because if you were to finish that one street that you said you would, you're legally prohibited from using it for any other street. But so it's not, you couldn't go spend it and we're going to go fix the roof on City Hall. That is not, it's not allowable.
So if we're able to use it for the ambulance and the fire truck, are we able also to use it for other police vehicles?
I need to review that language, and I don't have that ordinance in front of me right now to see exactly how it reads. Sometimes it'll be for emergency vehicles. Sometimes they will actually state ambulance and fire station. And I just don't have that ordinance in front of me at the moment.
If you look at page 10 of the ordinance, the last paragraph says, for the purpose of paying in whole or in part contractual obligations to be incurred to 1, acquire, construct, and equip street, sidewalk, and related drainage improvements at various locations in the city, and to acquire public safety equipment, including a fire truck and ambulance and related equipment, to pay all or a portion of the legal, fiscal, and engineering fees in connection therewith, and 3, pay the costs of issuance related to such certificates of obligation. Page 10 of the bottom of page 10,
So-
last paragraph in bold, yep.
Based on that, we could certainly ask your bond attorneys who wrote that language. Experience tells me that yes, we could use that for police vehicles to the extent necessary. You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Friedman.
You're welcome.
Okay, I would like to open the floor for a motion on this item.
Go ahead and make a motion to approve the ordinance authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery of up to $6 million in aggregate principal amount to the city of Kennedale, Texas, combination tax and revenue certificates of obligation series 2021.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
There's one discussion topic,
Okay.
but it has nothing to do with the 6 million. It has to do with the wording on the agenda. Underneath where it says information from the original staff report, the last sentence says council's direction has been to issue 14 million in new debt over the next 3 years. I don't think this council has made that decision as a new council from this year. So is it possible for that to be removed from the wording on this, or?
Are you talking about the wording on the
On the
agenda,
staff
the staff
report?
Yeah.
report?
No, on the consideration item, yeah.
I can't go back and remove what's written in the staff
Okay.
report at this point, no, but
Okay, so I would just go on record that this council hasn't given that directive to staff.
Okay,
That's the only thing I have is a discussion item.
It goes on to say that it's expected that at least 6 million in CO debt could be issued in September 2021, which is now, and another 8 million in 2024 to fund a small portion of the 90 million plus in identified projects. So this 6 plus 4 is 14, but yeah, I can definitely see where you're.
I would just say
objection.
remove that last sentence in that last paragraph.
okay, this is just an informational staff report. So we do have a motion on the floor to approve in a second. Any further discussion about the motion? Okay, hearing none, let's call for a vote. All those in favor to approve, raise your hand, please.
It's not, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All voted in favor? Thank you, Mr. Friedman. Appreciate it. Okay. Those two, right?
Yeah, I'll do the rest tomorrow.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, the next item is to discuss and consider an ordinance adopting the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021 and ending September 30th, 2022. Ms. Sutton?
Mayor and council, this evening, we are asking you to consider adopting the budget for fiscal year 21-22. We submitted the proposed budget back at the beginning of August, and we went and satisfied all of our statutory requirements, postings, tax rate announcements, and everything was done within the truth and taxation laws. And so the final step will be to adopt, one of the final steps will be to consider adoption of the budget tonight. Along with this item, you have the ordinance, and then in addition to that, you have an exhibit attached to that. And so the exhibit that's attached to the ordinance tells you in detail how much revenue and expenditures are supported within this budget. The general fund, total regular general fund revenue is $8,002,160. And through the other general funds added to that, you're adopting a total general fund budget of $9,158,942, as you'll see on that exhibit. That exhibit showing that revenue does include a property tax rate of 0.764085. And then also with your staff report, you see a number of items that we discussed together at our last couple meetings, and some things that we kind of decided on in order to get us where we are with our revenue and our expenditures. And those are summarized there. I'll just kind of run through them. We did update several revenue sources, SRO revenue, thanks to the new police chief. Jan made some great suggestions about increasing sales tax, which I agree with, and that was great. Reducing the planner position from part-time to full-time, included 2% cost of living increase for civilians. That also includes continued step plans for public safety, a sales tax increase from 4% to 5%, and the interlocal that goes along with that. Again, it includes an ad valorem tax rate of 0.764085, a projected general fund drawdown of $899,430. And so with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Sorry, any questions? Go ahead.
And then the last paragraph on that staff report was, as noted by staff during the same meeting, the drawdown, which is 800 and something thousand, is expected to be mitigated via the receipt of ARPA. And so I'm thankful for that.
We hope so, yes.
yeah,
And
thankful for that.
actually, we hope to be receiving that pretty soon. So we surely hope that it'll be a lot better than that.
Yeah, I'm thankful for that. In the conversation about, so I guess I don't have any more questions to her about this.
The budget, okay. Gary, none? Julie?
I have a quick question about the ARPA funding that we're expecting. Do we know how much that might be?
It is going to be, they're going to give it to us in 2 increments. So we are going to be receiving approximately $2 million.
Wow.
And they're going to split that in half. And so we will receive our first allocation probably here pretty soon. And then once we kind of go through the process with TDM and how we can use it and all the different things, and once we get used to the documentation and how they want us to budget for it, we can definitely come back and talk about a budget amendment. But just to answer your question, 2 million split out into 2 allocations, 1 million we should be receiving pretty soon, and then the other million we'll receive this time next year.
Do we have an appropriation plan for how those funds would?
No,
be
and
utilized?
I fully expect that Leslie will have detailed conversations with staff, with council, and bring forth some ideas about how to allocate that.
We'll have to know what our parameters that we're working within are before we can propose something to council. So,
Great news that it's on the table though. You know, it looks like
Yes,
it's
yes.
gonna come through.
James? Okay. Just a reminder that when council gets ready to make a motion on this item, this budget was based upon the tax rate of 0.764085. Leslie, do you have anything to add?
I think we said most of our part during a portion of the agenda. We probably shouldn't have said it on. Sorry about that, Drew. But we would just reiterate that we would appreciate, the council sticking with the plan thus far. So.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
I'd just say one quick thing.
Yes.
I understand that we can go back and do a budget amendment once the monies comes in and once we know what the final is, but we can't go back and do an amendment on the taxes. So I guess for me, I wish I had known this, and you can't know things you don't know. I realize that, but I wish I had known this when we were having our meetings, because it would have been a very different, there would have been added conversation. Because all we were looking for was $90,000 to bring it down.
Well, I have to comment on that. So what portion are you saying that you wish you had known?
What we didn't know. like
Which
we
is
did-
what? Because every month, when you're presented with the financials,
Right.
you can see what the budgeted drawdown is and versus where we're at that time of the month.
Right,
And so there was no big surprises from April to May to June,
Right.
July, August. So
right. And it wasn't what you didn't provide. So
Mhm.
what we know today that we didn't know then was, and you felt pretty sure we were going to get the ARPA funds. I mean, you
Mhm.
were telling us pretty sure. So even with the 2 million that we're going to be getting, I mean, that really helps our fund balance immensely. So it wasn't, just, I guess, as you get closer and you see August, you see the end of August, how good that looks, that it remained healthy.
Yeah.
So, and that's not on you, Lakita.
No, I understand
not on
totally
you.
the point
Right.
that you're trying to make.
And
So
if I can try and put a bit of a positive spin on this, I feel like that the community sees the council's commitment to mitigating the tax rate based on the discussions we've had and the budget that you all helped us form together. And I think that what we have here is an opportunity to get back to the point where we can have that fund balance of 25%, that we don't have to worry if there's going to be a tornado come through that we can't respond to.
Right.
So this is a moment in time for this city to get back on solid ground. And
agree.
then I think we can look at
Right.
kind
next
of
year.
what you're looking for. Does that
I
make
agree.
sense?
Yes, it does. Thank
Okay.
you.
And
Thank you, Lakita.
mhm.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to open the floor for a motion.
I'd like to go ahead and propose a motion to approve the ordinance adopting the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2021 and ending September 30th, 2022.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Connor and a second by Councilmember Jacobson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's call for a vote with a show of hands. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. But all voted in favor. Next agenda item is to discuss and consider ratification of property tax increase reflected in 2021, 2022 adopted budget. Ms. Sutton?
Mayor and council, this part is just strictly a formality that goes along with local government code. Our effective rate came in at 75 cents, right? 2 cents lower than the current rate. We are proposing to adopt a budget 1 cent above that, which is 76 cents. That means that that's still a tax increase. And so this process just provides for us to be able to do that. So I believe Drew has included the wording for that motion.
Okay, any questions for Lakita? Thank you. I'd like to open the floor for a motion then.
Move to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the fiscal year 21 through 22 adopted budget.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote with a show of hands. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. All voted in favor. Next item is to discuss and consider approval of an ordinance fixing and levying the municipal ad valorem tax for the city of Kennedale, Texas for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021 and ending September 30th, 2022. Ms. Sutton?
Okay, this is the final step in adopting our budget and tax rate for fiscal year 21-22. In your packet, we have included a summary of all of the budget discussions that we've had in the past few weeks. All of our noticing has been posted along, and we had our required public hearing as well. So this item is to finalize making our tax rate 0.764085, which is effectively a 0.59% increase in the tax rate. And if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them.
And just a further note that this needs to be a record vote,
Yes.
and the recommended language is included in the staff sheet. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Sutton? No?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
In reviewing ordinance number 733 on page 2, it says the tax rate will effectively be raised by 0.59%. Will raise taxes for maintenance and operations on a $100,000 home by approximately minus $9.74.
So when you're talking about the ordinance, the tax rate ordinance, even though this is a tax increase, the ordinance calls for the difference in M and Os, not the total tax rate. And so that's why you see that minus sign on there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lakita.
You're welcome.
I'd like to open the floor for a motion, please.
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of the tax rate of 0.764085, which is effectively a 0.59% increase in the tax rate.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a record vote. Mayor Pro Tem Jan Joplin. Yes, okay. Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Jacobson. Councilmember Dagenhart
Yes.
and Councilmember Connor.
Yes.
Okay, motion approved unanimous. Leslie, do you need anything in addition to that record vote?
I don't believe so, Drew. Did we skip any steps? I'd just like to
Good.
thank Lakita and her staff for all the work that they've put into this. And
Yes, appreciated.
the council
Much.
for all the hours that you've spent helping us get this to a point that we can all be comfortable.
Yes. Okay, next item, discuss and consider approval of a 3-year renewal of M&R janitorial services contract. Ms. Galloway?
We have Ron here tonight. Ron Francis is the owner of M&R Janitorial. They have provided custodial services to the city since 2009 or 2010. I think 9. Yeah, I was trying to look today to see exactly when that contract started, but they've provided excellent service. Staff would recommend an extension of this contract for the next 3 years. That's been the term that we've used each time. And there is no price increase requested at this time. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? No, I'd like to open the floor for a motion on this item.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve a three-year renewal of M&R janitorial services contract.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, a call for a vote with a show of hands. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. All voted in favor, passed unanimously. And there is no other item, there are no other items to discuss. So at this time, I would call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all voted in favor. Thank you. Good evening.